Alright, we've got 2 packages. This one's bigger, although it's not like a huge update. And then we've got a Right Stuff package, and this Right Stuff one is one, I guess I'm glad it showed up because I wasn't quite sure if it would. Not that it's a series I specifically want, but rather it's, I don't know. It's nice to know that I don't have to trace a release. As in, like, I think, Media Blasters is really weird with this. I see a birthday sale card. Came with it, too. This open. What was in here? That's part of the reason why it's shaped weird. Okay. So I see Boruto. The DVD was on the top, so digging it out so we can take a look at all of them. Sorry, I was just thinking. Oh yes, and then I also got the Super Mario Brothers movie, the Blu-ray DVD version, and I watched it, but I'll talk about that later. Just for the time being, we've got anime, and actually some pretty notable stuff this week. Although I'm not sure if I would count Boruto in there per se. Maybe, though, other people would feel differently because, you know, it's been around for a while. And, well, I would say that, you know, just the fact that it keeps going and going, it's kind of different but not different or something. I don't know. Something about it is just, like, exhausting to think about continuing to try to do. I think my friend was the same, and that's why after Ship It In, we called it Promised Neverland. Naruto and Boruto. You know, Viz always advertising the manga as well. I didn't see if it was the manga for Promised Neverland, but I'm just guessing it was. And as usual, once we look at the Blu-ray version, we'll see that the disc art's the same. But there's something they do different about it. I forget what. You know, I just looked at it. Instead of a background place, it's background poisons. With the same pads. I guess let's take a look. Now read the manga. Okay, yeah. And it looks pretty. But, yeah. Then we have Boruto, where the other problem with these releases is they stopped numbering them. Somehow I'm going to have to figure this all out, I guess. Probably list the episode numbers back there. No, hold on just a second. That actually says set 15 right there. So they might still be showing the numbers for all of these. It's just that it's only on the back. Interesting. We have Made in Abyss. What was this series called? The Golden City of the Scorching Sun. Because I know that's it there, but it's small and dark. And like I said, I actually kind of really appreciated this season. It wasn't very Made in Abyss. It was very weird. It kind of had a target, interesting characters, just a lot of stuff about this that was nice. It just makes you want to watch more Made in Abyss. So Region A only. This has English dub. Kind of hard. Okay, I guess I kind of have a vague idea of what this image is showing. They're kind of dark. Spy Family. Now here on Blu-ray DVD. I see a little damage to this, but you know, that's okay. So did Viz release this? This looks like this is season 1, part 1. DVD Blu-ray. Who is this saying? No, this is Crunchyroll Toho. Okay. So I guess this is technically Crunchyroll Toho, which basically means it's the new Funimation, I guess. But, you know, still important stuff. For those of you who didn't get a chance to watch it and don't know what to think about it, it's pretty damn good. I think at the end of the day, what you will find if you watch it for the first time, and if you're like everybody else, well, people pretty much just like the characters. That looks like some description of stuff. That's NTC 124. Okay, and then over here is regions A and B, which means that for those of you who like to import US release stuff, that's an option. For those of you who are overseas, that's disc. We had discs 1 and 2 and discs 1 and 2. I was just trying to decide which one was DVDs and which one were Blu-rays. I'm not sure. And then last but not least, we have... Oh no, this isn't last release. That is... But we have My Senpai is Annoying, which actually looks kind of like a neat slice of life sort of thing. I appreciate that it's not another high school slice of life. You know, there's plenty of those in anime, and anime in general gets criticized for that, but you know. This is not childish at all, limited edition. Okay. So in here we'll have some stickers. Just trying to decide if this one was actually missing or if that was just a blank speech bubble, and I think it's supposed to be a blank speech bubble, and it is. I see there's something else in here that I missed. Looks like, you know what, this said what all was in here on the case. That's 4 art cards, a matching lanyard set, and the sticker sheet. So this is the matching lanyards set. I wonder if I would use that at work or not. I don't know. All I know is I'm opening these art cards to just take a peek at them. Interesting. I don't think I need to put them back in here, but I'm going to just for my own lazy sake. But they get put to the side, because now we're going to take a look in here. Did we look at... I think we looked at everything with that. So we have... Oh. Yeah, you can definitely tell this is a slice of life because it's showing off all of its characters. So this is DVD and Blu-ray. I guess I forgot to mentally double check because we have disc 1, 1 through 7, disc 2, 8 through 12, disc 1, 1 through 6, disc 2, 7 through 12. So the last two would be your DVDs, and got an art book. I saw some text in there. I saw some manga. Cool things. So this, I guess, yeah, that's regions A and B, NTCs 1, 2, and 4. So that answers a lot of questions. All right, and then we have Final Examination Kujira, which again. It's not that I know anything about this series, but I kind of appreciate it showing up because these Media Blaster ones tend to be a little more unreliable in terms of release. Like Media Blaster doesn't always seem to release everything that they plan to release. And things are delayed and not communicated to the websites that contain that stuff all that well. But here it is. It made it. I don't know. I guess I always feel like checking that because sometimes they've done pressed DVDs. And this is Blu-ray, so that shouldn't apply to this. What can I tell about the bottom? 54 minutes, according to that. Region A. One disc. Alright. Well, it's actually an interesting little spread of stuff. Here's this week's Anime DVD Collection update. Alright, let's see. So my watch schedule has definitely become a little more all over the place. You know, what with the stress of the return to office stuff and all that. I don't know. I guess I've spent more time diving into Tears of the Kingdom than I have prioritizing certain anime on here, which, you know, I kind of talked most of this season about how that was always a risk for a lot of the stuff out here, and a couple of things started falling apart because of that. For starters, so with my Friday friend, I watched a Demon Slayer Swordsmith Village arc. That's season 3, episode 3. You know, I'm watching the dub stuff, so I'm well behind on it. Those of you watching it subtitled are way ahead of me. I remember, let's see, what all happened in episode 3. I guess, yeah. All entertaining stuff. It's a fun episode. Unfortunately, this coming Friday, I'm not going to watch episode 4 because my Friday friend is going to be out of town. But when he comes back, we'll watch 2 episodes and it'll all be fun. Unless One Piece takes over. And I don't know the timing of the next One Piece, so I should probably figure that out. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Again, enjoying season 3 here. Yeah, trying to think what all I would say about it, and I don't know. Just the stuff I remember happening in it is just like, the unfortunate thing is I would really have liked to go on to episode 4, but since I'm also really into knowing the characters through their English dub voices, having watched it from the beginning English dubbed, I am definitely limited in that regard. Let's see. I watched the first 3 episodes of Scarlet Nexus. I guess I'm not sure the exact rules, but I'm guessing that it got uploaded to Crunchyroll in this past week. Basically, because I think there's more Funimation stuff that they're catching up on getting onto Crunchyroll. Maybe stuff that used to be on Crunchyroll but maybe got removed but now is being added back in, possibly. There's a lot of speculation on my part, so take all of that with a grain of salt. I just know that it showed up in the new episode feed, and I'm like, I guess when I read the synopsis, something about that clicked a little bit more for me than the DVD Blu-ray, wherever that is. Mostly when it talked about how there were these things called others eating people, I'm like, you know, and while that can be really disturbing, there's a lot of really good anime set up that, you know, introduce that dark element that usually you don't want to see, and maybe they don't show, but the implication can make something more interesting than you would think. And I guess, you know, I decided to give it a shot, and it's, I don't know if the camera picked up that click, but weird stuff. Anyways, I don't know if it, I guess it was mostly okay for me. Can I narrow in on what I liked and didn't care for about it? Well, at a minimum, I kind of like the main character and kind of just the weird, kind of laid back attitude he has and his presence there, and despite his anime character setup, and kind of the people surrounding him related to that. But I didn't care for the fact that it was trying to set stuff up and trying to set up a real conspiracy thing, but not really giving us a good feel for their world, I guess. And I think they're telling us, but they're kind of going through it a little fast instead of like is showing, yes, here's what everyday life is like for people here. And we're getting the impression kind of as we go, but I think we're also getting it very shortly before some of the conspiracy sort of stuff is showing up. And I don't know. It's and it's possible it might not be the anime's fault, but it didn't seem to be working specifically for me, I guess. Let's see. I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to continue watching or not. I guess... yeah, I guess I'm not sure. Strange Things. Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts, Episode 9. This was a good episode, I think. We got a little more insight into Anubis. Just kind of his history and his mindset, and I feel like it's easier to appreciate him more. Like, he needs to continue being present, because one thing that can make this show go from very interesting to not quite keeping me and possibly other people hooked, it would be if there wasn't any real conflict in it. And so he's kind of the face of the real conflict, I'd say. And it's good that he's been around, and he's continuing to be, I guess, an interestingly thought out character. And this episode, is really about bringing that out and bringing it to the forefront and giving us, the viewers, more insight. Pretty good stuff. Let me see. Kamikatsu, Working for God in a Godless World, Episode 10. What all happened in this episode? I'm trying to remember. This is definitely a week of harder to remember just what happened in the week. And I remember it being an entertaining episode. Let's see. It was doing some of that, some of that, some of that. Some interesting stuff. Some of it maybe feeling a little touching, I think. I vaguely thought that the way some of the scenes were executed were a little touching. But other than that, entertaining episode, I think. Konosuba. So I'm still an episode behind on the dub, but that does mean that I did watch episode 8. I was thinking maybe I'd watch episode 9, but here we are and I haven't watched it yet, so the energy just is not there. And I guess okay, amusing stuff. Let's see. Some of it feels like, I guess it's trying to play off some jokes similar to the way seasons 1 and 2 of Konosuba did, but it's not quite in the right place in how it's doing them. Nothing necessarily horrible, but I don't know, maybe just not as effective, in my opinion. And I'm not entirely sure if I know why, and I think the main reason tends to be, as a prequel series, it's kind of caught in a weird place where you kind of know the outcome of some stuff, but at the same time they want you to think that some of the same wackiness is there, but they don't have as many pieces to use, I suppose. I'm not sure. It's been conflicting for me, hence why I didn't watch the episode 9. Like, it's not bad, it's just not keeping me for some reason. Let's see. The Legendary Hero is Dead, episode 11. I guess good enough stuff. It's actually doing stuff that's not just constant cringe, it's doing entertaining end of season or core or serious sorts of things, so kind of appreciative. Is Wrong to Try to Pick Girls in a Dungeon, season 4, episode 20. Enjoyed the episode. Like I've been saying, I've been loving season 4, especially this second half of season 4 where things have just been something else. Something about the way the English voice actors played their part touched me as pretty tragic too.
like well acted. I hope the Japanese with subtitles was just as good, if not better, because you know, you kind of always hope that the original people that made it did a good job, and that I'm not just latching onto something that's only in the English dub. And I hope other people appreciate those same sorts of feelings that this episode kind of brought in. But, you know, it made me feel some stuff, so kind of nice. Dr. Stone, Season 3, Episode 9. It's an okay episode. Again, you know, this is Dr. Stone being person versus person again, you know, or tribe versus tribe, whatever sort of stuff going on. And, you know, I'm just continuing to watch it. It's still being enjoyable. I don't think it's the most enjoyable aspects of the show. I do think the show is much better when it's just like everybody working together, just because there's still conflict there, and that conflict usually comes from, oh, well, this is something that historical people, you know, modern people, didn't have to deal with because they found ways to work around it with science. And here's how we're introducing those ideas with science. So that conflict is still there, and that is still interesting when that happens, but the person versus person stuff is... We'll have to see. It's not been bad, but it is definitely a little on the weaker side, I think, but not bad. I didn't watch the latest episode of My One Hit Kill Sister. I haven't caught up at all on Mashley or Too Cute Crisis. I think I'm keeping up on Rokudo's Bad Girls because there is a bit of story happening in there. Important story stuff happening. And I think it's okay and doing interesting things, especially where it's going with some of the stuff. I'm definitely curious to see where the next and possibly final of the series or season episode goes. So, it's doing a good job. Hell's Paradise, episode 11. Very entertaining stuff. Enjoying it. Although I think it's getting closer and closer to something that would have to be something like a final confrontation. I don't know if that's 1 or 2 more episodes. Hopefully it's 2 more episodes, or 1 long episode or something like that. Because it feels like if it isn't, it is at risk of being too long. Or, I mean, too rushed. Sorry. Summon to Another World for a second time, episode 11. You know, the problem with this episode is it introduced a lot of characters up to this point, but I guess we didn't really get to know them. You know, we got shown some very brief stuff so we can put some of this stuff together, but it's dedicating a lot of storytelling time towards seeing character arcs happen that don't quite have as much impact as I think they should. And it's not horrible, it's just weak. It's a show that I continue to watch episode by episode, I guess. But I guess it's probably pretty close to a finale. I don't know if there's 1 or 2 more episodes, but this one I could see wrapping up in 1 more episode if it really wanted to. And, yeah, I guess we'll have to see. The Aristocrats' Otherworldly Adventures, Serving Gods Who Go Too Far, episode 12, which I think is the last episode of this season. Shouldn't be the last episode of the series. And it's okay. Some of the conflict and stuff that happened was okay. But there's a lot of problems with it. Okay, so the premise is that our main character got reincarnated, but they got level 10 blessings of all the gods. And I kind of mentioned one of the things that would have actually made this series really interesting in terms of exploring that would have been to kind of dedicate like an episode to the implication of this is what it means for this god's blessing to be that high, and this god, and this god. And they don't exactly do that, and instead their gimmick is more people saying, Cain, you know, the main character, and just saying, how could you do that? Even though it should be better than that, because like our main character should be above some of that, because, you know, like, I don't know how to say stuff without spoiling stuff, I guess. you would think that he as a character would have grown a backbone and told people to stop being dumb fucking pieces of shit. Of course I used Emperor level magic. I was like, going up against an enemy that required Emperor level magic. But no, the series is pretty stuck on that gimmick, because after that then it showed, well, this is where he's going to go next. And while you think that would be where next season would start, instead it started giving us blips and pieces, like it's going through stuff real quick, just to have the character's reaction to that. And I thought it was very fine, but not necessarily compelling. I can't even really say I would call it good storytelling per se. Not bad storytelling, just not good, I guess. But if it's over, then I guess it's my one Sunday anime, probably about to be replaced with something else. I think I took a peek, and something else maybe does start airing this coming Sunday, June 26th, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to find out. But fortunately, so, I had today, Monday, off. It's Juneteenth. Relatively newly acknowledged holiday, I suppose. But, my company acknowledges it, and, thank God for the breather. But the really nice thing about Monday is all four of the anime I look forward to. With probably the one lowest on the list being In Another World with My Smartphone Season 2, Episode 12, which I do believe is the final episode of the season. It can be kind of hard to tell because they didn't have this is what's going to end this season for sure. You didn't know if something was going to happen that would be a kind of story crescendo of some sort. But the way the episode is named is the same as the name of the final episode of the first season, and both of the first season was 12 episodes and this one's 12 episodes. So you can guess without really looking up that this was probably the last episode of this season. And it was okay. A little bit more of that. So one of the things that Smartphone does that does make it entertaining is this building up of stuff. Because there's definitely, our main characters adding to his arsenal, so to speak, and it's set up what that means, the different avenues and the interest that can happen because of that. So it continued to give us that throughout this entire season, so it was kind of entertaining in that regard. The members of his harem, so a good harem is definitely one in which the characters are distinct, and this doesn't necessarily mean that absolutely every single character needs to be absolutely distinct. You can play around with that twins concept, where maybe they're not necessarily twins, but they are, two copies of the same character, but they're both part of the harem, sort of, in some way. And I can think of various shows and anime that have done it. This one never did that. That would be the closest thing, but even that definitely wasn't. And so, this show definitely wanted to keep the various members of the harem kind of doing their own thing. So they're not just like a new girl gets thrown onto the pile and then they just kind of, yes, here's the harem. It's some incoherent blob. So it's not quite that. There is some sort of... There is like a dangerous feeling in terms of it almost feeling like it could be like that, because there are moments where it's just like, well, here's them making a decision together, which isn't quite that, but it gets close to that when it's just like, would all these characters actually be like that? It's really hard to tell. I think maybe somebody could tell you that it felt like one character's personality had to get changed in order for them to be added to the harem, in which case I would listen to that person. But for me, who doesn't really track specific characters that well per se, I guess, I didn't notice anything like that, and it felt like, outside of moments like that, their commentary to each other wasn't just like copy-paste. It was, a little nuance. This is how this character would think about it. This is how this character would do that. And they kept, a little bit of that they are independent people throughout this season, even though I think there's a real temptation to not do that. So, kind of an overall good second season, I would say. Especially if you're into Smartphone. Let's see, I got a cheat skill in Another World and became unrivaled in the real world 2, episode 12. Now, if this is only... because I remember the other week I looked it up and I saw how many episodes were there. If it was only 12 episodes, well, they did announce the name of a 13th episode, so hopefully it's either 13 episodes or it's a 2-cour, and the 12 episode announcement was just the first cour, and the second cour will be immediately after. So I don't feel like it quite... Well, it could have wrapped up at a kind of wrapping up halfway cour point. Hard to say. It's just really weird when you have a thing happen at the end of an episode that isn't like, oh, well, this is the start to a new season, but instead just like something that feels like a more potential real conflict that could be the end of a season. That's not something that would require like a whole story arc or something like that. But overall, an entertaining episode that wasn't quite as tied to its story as I thought. You know, like the previous episode definitely set something up where it's like, that's a pretty important thing. Well, is the next episode going to be tied down by it? But it wasn't. Instead, it was exploring stuff that, you know, like the previous episode is like, this is stuff that normally happens earlier in these isekais. So it's nice that they're getting touched upon. This as a series, I think, is going to be a lot more enjoyable for people who binge it. For me, I'm kind of hoping it continues to go on because despite its slow pace, I've been enjoying it. Why Raliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion, episode 11. An entertaining episode. Let's see, is there anything about it that struck out to me? Other than, you know, well, I mean, I was going to say other than the ending, because the ending of this episode is definitely setting up towards something important, similar to what the previous episode was setting up, but it's leading closer and closer to that, and that feels like this series could end at the next episode, especially since the end of the next episode is Why Raliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion. Which, you know, usually if your last episode has the same name as the series itself, then it's kind of the episode where you kind of get to the place that the anime said it would take you. And it's been a good journey. I'm mostly just curious how it's going to work out. And I guess I kind of worry if some of the previous story arc stuff won't feel like it properly led to this ending or not. It's hard to say because I kind of have some conflicting thoughts on what I want to happen if this is the last episode or if this is a season finale or a series finale or core finale or whatever. So, interesting stuff, entertaining stuff. And then last but not least, Dead Mount Deathplay, episode 11. So I learned something very recently, which is that I guess the people who made Bakano and Durarara also did this. Like, I guess I was watching a YouTube video which was talking about this season's Isekai. It's a couple of weeks old. And that would kind of explain some of my head-scratching speculation. Well, maybe it's setting up for this. And I think it kind of is. But if this is from the people who made Bakano and Durarara, then yeah, it started out with a strong protagonist and kind of interactions with him. Here in the second half of this first core or season or series, you know, mostly about him and stuff around him. But then it started introducing other characters. I'm like, I guess it's building up for whatever it's doing, and that's because that's what the people of this show, those shows normally do. Bakano and Durarara kind of make this big, huge cast of characters, and it all comes together at the very end. Bakano, very non-normal narrative style. Durarara, I guess I'm trying to remember exactly how it worked. But it felt like they did focus on the character before. It's like, okay, now we're introducing all these interesting characters we've built up. And if that's the case, then yeah, where it's been going makes a lot of sense. Interesting things being set, continue to be set up in episode 11, which I thought had been set up in episode 10, but I guess 11 is more set up, so this could be building up to something really big and interesting, or a step to a next season or series, I'm not sure. But overall, I would say an interesting episode, but I feel it needs to be a little more focused on our main character, because he's the one who drew us in, right? Those two never showed up, did they? Strange. Those three never showed up, did they? Strange. No, he must have talked. Oh well. Definitely looking forward to the next episode. You know, it'd be nice if it's not the last and if it's like something great, because this show still has a lot of really great potential and a lot of good setup. I wouldn't say great setup, because I guess that's just a big con on Do It or Nothing. And if you thought those shows had great setup, maybe you actually think this one is great too. I'm not sure if I'm a good judge of that, because you know, some things just don't sync with me. But overall, yeah, entertained. All right, Super Mario Bros. Movie. Super Mario Bros. Movie. Didn't enunciate that too well, I thought. It was actually pretty entertaining. In my opinion, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a much more special movie to watch. I wouldn't call this one special feeling, but you know, that could just be me. And I think a lot of it is that it's flawed, but it's very entertaining despite the flaws, because it doesn't weigh itself down with the flaws being so important. So I think an example would be, very few of the characters, I would say, are very faithful to their video game counterparts. And to a certain degree, I think we expect that, but they don't deviate from them enough such that we are bothered by them. I think Princess Peach is probably the biggest well-known example there, where one of the fears from the trailers is like, oh shit, did they turn her into a girl boss? Or bossy bitch or something or like that. And because there were some of those mannerisms that are used in those a whole lot. And a lot of people said afterwards, no, she's just the princess of the kingdom, as in she's in charge. And if I were to add on to that, I would say, you know, she's disappointed when Mario can't do something, but not like disappointed and like, oh, this emasculated piece of crap or anything like that. It's more like, I think she knows he can do it, and she's actually rooting for him. And she actually expresses a lot of support, and she kind of knows, okay, I'm better, but that doesn't make me an inherently better person. And that's a lot more likable. And again, you know, that's not Peach at all. The original Peach, I'd say she's a figurehead, except that, you know, her kingdom are figure people. And so the original Peach works out just because, you know, there's just a sort of simplistic innocence there that this one can't quite do, but, you know, they didn't go with that Peach, and that's fine, I think. I actually really liked some of how they introduced Mario. I would question the way some characters describe some things, but I'm wondering if we're supposed to mean to. But like I said, none of the characters are quite right, but for them being their own thing, they're not dwelled on too hardly. Like, you would think Bowser would probably be one of the people they got right. And I would say if there's one thing they got slightly wrong about him, this is one thing I noticed while watching it. His minions were putting on a rock concert. I'm like, yeah, you know, rock and roll is very strongly associated with Bowser, but you know what else is? Saxophones. Because at some level, you know, he's a rock and roll jazzy kind of thing, because he's showy. He's a supervillain. He's all about presentation. Even if unintentionally show. You know, he's not Megamind deliberately putting on a show, so to speak. But, you know, he's kind of flashy, and I don't feel like that was caught in this one. But what was there was still not bad in that regard. You know, his motivations are still there. Very Bowser-y. I'm just trying to think what to say without spoiling too much. Because, you know, you can watch this movie and list a lot of flaws. Like, okay, the dog that the Mario Brothers interacted with at the very beginning, such an Illumination Entertainment animal. And it's also one of those situations where it's like, no, they have to hide this situation getting worse, even though it's not really their fault. And, you know, that's very uncomfortable, not very big fan of it. But the show isn't all like that. It was just one moment to kind of set up a thing, which is like, I don't know. If you were to see anything about it, it's not that the Mario Brothers are incompetent plumbers. It's that they are really fucking unlucky. Is there any more to that I would say? I'm not sure. But, you know, I've also watched Phil Mento's thing, which came out a couple days ago, and he had really damn good timing because, you know, that was like the day after I watched actually, he might have put it out the day before I watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, but I didn't watch his YouTube video until after it. And, you know, I think there's interesting points in there. He talked about all these other little things you do in there. And from a storytelling perspective, they definitely did a good job overall. But yeah, there's still things about it that if you watch it, you'll probably find just feel flawed. For example, I felt like some of the action was a little too fast. Like, maybe not that action was happening, but like our main characters having to do stuff because, you know, they're having to move forward in the action sequence, I suppose, or kind of have to move along at a faster speed than I think makes sense per se. But even with all that stuff, for some reason it's just entertaining. It's, I think at its core, there is Super Mario Brothers there and the simplicity of Super Mario Brothers. You know, there's been a little bit of stuff added on top, but again, they didn't add too much stuff. It's like, I maybe as another good example, I've talked about how Peach is a take control kind of person, but hearing that, you may think that she would have been able to go on the adventure on her own, and Mario just had to get up to speed to finally do something in the final battle. But no, I think she just knew what she had to do, and she was going to try her best, but she maybe wasn't going to be able to do it. But then Mario was actually able to be there and to be somebody that helped her. You know? And this wasn't like save her, this was help and let help. But it's Mario's movie, and so, you know, he's the one going through a major story arc. But, you know, they even though they built her up to be this princess who's competent and really good at the kingdom, that doesn't mean she's able to do absolutely everything. And so it gets back to that thing where it's just like, okay, at the end of the day, that setup is really more of an excuse to have Mario and Peach journeying together, which sometimes they actually do in some of the games. Although sometimes they do it really weird by making Toadette take a mushroom that turns her into Queen, Princess Peachette. And then, of course, Bowsette gets born from all that weirdness. But, you know, they do that. And I guess some of the way the ending turned around was a little sudden. But at the same time, it was just entertaining. It's just like, nope, we've done this. But what they did with it still felt kind of fun to watch and neat. So, you know, it's a lot of stuff. But overall, you know, a decent movie. And I think that's really what it came down to is we've been inundated with so many, oh my god, what idiots are writing this stuff. Because not only are we seeing movies where it's like, okay, something clearly went wrong, we're seeing a lot of movies come out where everything went wrong. I mean, what can we say that's good about some stuff? I know at least for the new Indiana Jones, I've heard that the very beginning of the movie, for a brief period of time, feels like an actual Indiana Jones movie. And then they shit all over it. Fun. The Little Mermaid. It's horrible to watch people who make something who clearly don't appreciate the original. And I haven't even seen it. I've just seen various videos where people are like, okay, here's my complaints about this aspect. I watched a YouTube video earlier today where or maybe that was last night, where a lady was talking about how much she appreciated Poor Unfortunate Souls, the original, and she was excited by the video, not because she was talking down the new one, but because she was able to say, here's what made the old one so great. And it's all these things that ultimately, you know, the new movie just lost because the people working on it at best seem to understand things at a superficial level. And that's assuming they even understand anything. And Super Mario Brothers stands out because we keep getting stinker after stinker after stinker. And a lot of people, I think, might be giving up on certain companies. Now, whether it's enough to make a dent, I don't know for certain. I hear people that say it's making a dent, but I don't know if those people saying that are actually just, being very hopeful and stuff like that. It's fine. At the end of the day, if you like the new Little Mermaid movie, live action movie, I might question if you're actually sane and if you should maybe be locked up in an insane asylum. But I don't know if we have those anymore. Otherwise, the people working on these movies might actually have a place they should go. But I am negatively digressing. The truth of the matter is, I think for a lot of people, it's hard for a movie to just be a movie. And it feels like nowadays, when we do get a movie that's just a movie, and it's more than just a movie. It's definitely not just some mediocre movie that if it came out last year or 5 years ago, nobody would care. It's got a lot of, I like the voices, I like the graphics. Some elements of the action were very enjoyable. It had a lot of fun things that happened in it. I guess I'm just cynical because I'm also thinking about how few movies we're going to get that are going to learn the lesson, because some rather big idiots need to fall down first, I think. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I need to not be cynical. I need to be more positive. I was looking at some of the upcoming anime, because all the stuff I've talked about today, a lot of that's about to come to an end. And what can I say? There's definitely stuff that I'm like, well, I don't know what I think about this, but I'm interested in giving it a shot. Like, Reincarnated as a Vending Machine did not strike me. Like, I think I heard about that one before Reincarnated as a Sword. Maybe that was, like a really, really, really old preview or something like that, or hint that this is going to be made eventually. But I definitely felt more attracted to Reincarnated as a Sword. But I'm still interested in the Reincarnated as a Vending Machine. I do believe that's about to start up in a couple of weeks or something like that. Unless I'm not correct in terms of what I saw start up. There's, just a handful of medieval fantasy isekai sorts of stuff, and I'm definitely curious. Nothing that strikes me as mind-blowing as a couple of the ones from this season, like Dead Mount Deathplay and Kamikatsu. But you never know. And maybe those won't be my cup of tea, and then I will stop, watching as much anime, and then all of a sudden all my stuff will be talking about video games. So, speaking of video games, so Tears of the Kingdom, I'm continuing to drag my ass in terms of tackling the main story, which is exactly the same thing I did in Breath of the Wild, which is like, I liked to, because you could explore and gain the things you need to do in order to be sufficient absolutely everywhere, there was a part of me that's just like, okay, well, I'll just keep going. And right now, well, like the stuff I was doing tonight was mostly just going to places where I knew there's going to be a shrine and trying to figure out where it is. Trying to gain access to more shrines and complete all the shrines. Even though I know that in order to do that other thing, I really do need to progress the story. But I'm fine just like managing my map, I guess. Opening up more shrines, finding more locations where I can just assemble an air bike without having to use up any of my parts. Even though at this point I have like 40 steering sticks. Just things that the game gave me over time. Even though some elements of this would probably be a lot easier if I did go forward with the main story a little bit. But yeah, because I don't need that upgrade to the Pure Pad for that. But I don't know. I guess I've just been enjoying myself, filling out the map quite a bit more, going back to some of the, I should check this out again later, once I have an idea what to do, and now I have an idea of what to do in a lot more places. All fun stuff, I suppose. Do I want to say anything else? I don't think this is too spoiler, but I do have the Master Sword. That's about the only story development I've actually done. And a lot of the motivation for that is Master Sword in Tears of the Kingdom works similar to the way it does in Breath of the Wild in terms of it's kind of your best weapon to use if you're very conservative with your items like I am, because the durability of the Master Sword causes it to go to sleep for like 10 minutes of real life time. And, it doesn't progress if you're paused, and probably doesn't progress if you sleep. But the point is, when I can spend that time doing something that doesn't require me to fight and get the Master Sword back in time for something else that I want to fight, if I'm going to do that. So, I really like it. It's a good buddy for people like me that do that sort of stuff. And definitely enjoying it. Yeah, it's if any of you haven't started playing it, the world is a lot more re-explorable than you might have thought. Like, I know there's a lot of places where I'm like, yeah, I remember exploring this in detail in Breath of the Wild, and I think to some degree they know you're not going to do that. But for places that are like, well, this was interesting, and it looks interesting now, let's go see if there's something interesting with it. The game does a good job of rewarding you for thinking like that, and just overall works pretty well. Let's see. Other video game thing to talk about would be Dead by Daylight, because this week we had the release of the Singularity. So this would be the official release and us playing Beyond the PTB. If there was any complaint I'd have about the Singularity and Gabriel Soma, it's that their cosmetics don't feel customizable enough. Like, I don't know. I appreciate the fact that it's not, oh yes, reminded of the sex, because the sex, the cells. Gabriel Soma, all of his outfits are basically various forms of spaceman with slightly different colors. And that includes his purple, which is very spaceman, and and it doesn't look bad, but it's sort of like, I almost feel like it doesn't matter what you wear, you'll look like a Gabriel Soma, like every Gabriel Soma, no matter which pair of outfits you wear. And Hux, the Singularity, feels a little bit similar, which is interesting because, I have to ask the question, why did I feel like Drudge's cosmetics worked a lot better? And I think it's because even though the Dredge was a mess of stuff, fundamentally that mess was all one kind of thing. So for Dredge's cosmetics, his launch cosmetics, I feel like like most of them were just like, you could feel different. Like some of them would make you feel sick, like throwing up, or sick like you're just feeling chill all over, or something like that. Like, I feel like even though a lot of his cosmetics look the same but were different colors, they kind of had those different feels to it. And it's weird because while there is some similar coloring sort of stuff for Hux, none of it jumps out a whole lot. He at least looks really different with his launch purple outfit, but at the same time, I don't know, I kind of don't want to wear the entire outfit. Same with Mr. Soma. And so they're kind of okay, but yeah. I guess this is the chapter I've saved up the most blood points for, because with all of the blood points I saved up for it, I was able to get Singularity up to Prestige 3, and in Soma halfway to Prestige 1, which is quite a lot. Granted, I couldn't spend all of it like I would have wanted to, but that's mostly because I can spend iridescent shards on the Shrine of Secrets for the extra blood points that gives, because I can just spend real money on any of the cosmetics. Except for that one bill one, which is why I had to save a lot of iridescent shards to get that one. But I digress. The point is mostly just that, for me, iridescent shards are just a boost to blood points. 100,000 per 1,000 shards? No, 100,000 blood points to 2,000 shards. And it just means that I could spend 4 of them last week. I'll get to spend another couple tomorrow, I guess. I might wait just a little bit. Mostly because I think I want to start spending these blood points when the anniversary event starts, so that I have a character that has the anniversary stuff and I can use that character. Like Soma already has my default perk loadout, so he's good to go. I just need to get him to Prestige 3 so everybody gets his teachable perks, and then I could start spending blood points probably on Killer again. I think I might only have one more Killer to level up to get all the perks on them. Chances are that's not going to happen before the end of this event, so none of my Killers are going to have any of these anniversary cakes, I guess. It'll be all Soma, probably. But I guess that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But overall, fun. I did get to play as Hux in one match because I got his daily, and it's just like, oh, okay, I need to teleport people. And fortunately, a lot of people are new to it, and I got one of his really good maps, which is Raccoon City. Not that I'm really good at playing him. I think the people who are really good at playing him play hyper-aggressive chase, which I'll probably never do. So instead, I'll probably just play surveillance Hux, although some of the aggressive chase concepts have definitely I guess they've given me thought on how I might be able to just play as him better in general. I just seem to mostly get lost in them, but that's okay. I'm not trying to do anything too mind-blowing special. Oh well, it's all stuff. Now that I think about it, I also got a nurse daily last night. Oh well. That's all stuff. Blah, blah, blah. It's been a complicated week. So interestingly enough, hopefully this video is going up on Tuesday, June 20th. Yeah. Hopefully. I say hopefully because this is my first Tuesday after the return to office. And the main trick with this is I'm going to have my laptop on, muted, screen brightness turned very far down, overnight processing the video like I normally do. And when I wake up, I'm going to start the upload. But this time I have a very small window to do it because, as a part of getting ready to go into the office, I have to get that upload started. And that means I need to make sure that the processing will complete. And I've been trying to be on top of that. It means I need to make sure this thing doesn't fill up on disk space. But if you are getting what I'm hinting at, the problem with all that is there is a real possibility of me making a mistake of some sort. And if that happens, if I wake up and it's like, oh, I didn't leave enough disk space, or I forgot to start the processing, well, then I'll start the processing tomorrow morning, hopefully. I might not have the time to do that. But if this is showing up on Wednesday, June 21st instead, then probably that's what happened. But, I'm here talking to y'all about it, cognizant of it. So that suggests I should be able to get the right thing done. So here's hoping. Alright. This has been a long enough update. Thank you for listening to me blab. Y'all have a nice week.